My best friend asked me to take care of his sister who was sick with a cold. I gave her a vitamin C tablet. She frowned. "What did you just give me?" I teased her. "An aphrodisiac." That night, her body burning hot, she rushed into my room. "I feel so uncomfortable. The pills kicking in already?" I burst out laughing. But she wrapped herself around me, refusing to let go. That night, we surrendered completely to our desire. I never expected that she wasn't just older than me, but that everything else about her would be so overwhelming. When she woke up, cheeks flushed, she told me I had to take responsibility. We became a couple just like that. The most talked about pair on campus. My best friend couldn't have been happier. Every year he'd ask me the same thing. "When are you finally going to become my brother-in-law?" She'd hold me close, eyes full of longing. "This year, I promise." But the night before our wedding, my best friend and I were walking back to campus after seeing a movie, when we ran into a group of muggers. Their faces twisted with violence. They cornered us in an alley, demanding we hand over everything we had. In the end, my best friend used every ounce of strength to hold them back, so I could escape. But by the time I made it across the street at full sprint and called for help, all that was left of my best friend were his broken legs. Blood everywhere, no breath left in his body. From that day on, Summer Hayes had nothing but hatred for me. The Hayes family refused to forgive me. They canceled our engagement, forbade me from lighting incense at my best friend's memorial. I hated myself. Wished it had been me who died that day. But now, the only thing I could do was atone. So I became Summer Hayes' assistant, working from dawn to dusk every day, doing all her dirty work. The exhausting tasks, to help her close deals. Drinking until my stomach hemorrhaged, nearly dying multiple times. Once, I suddenly vomited up a massive amount of blood. The hospital tests revealed I was already in the middle to late stages of cancer. For the first time, I panicked. Terrified, I went looking for Summer Hayes, wanting the comfort she used to give me. But instead I found a man in Summer Hayes' Maybach, moving up and down. The man's voice was hoarse and thick. "Summer, I hate that assistant of yours. When are you going to get rid of him?" Summer hesitated for just a moment, then said coldly, "Don't worry. We're getting married soon. He can't affect us. Besides, he killed my brother. I only wish he were dead." Hearing that, I felt my heart bleeding drop by drop. I turned away and caught a cab back to the hospital. "Doctor, I'm not doing treatment anymore. I want to donate all my organs." The doctor looked shocked. He urged me, "Are you absolutely sure? If you pursue aggressive treatment, you could still extend your life. But if you refuse treatment, you'll only have a few months left at most." I didn't think twice. I shook my head. "I'm sure. I should have died a long time ago. This way I can apologize to Ryan Hayes down there, and Summer Hayes can finally be free." From that day on, I pretended everything was normal. Still went to the office every day like usual. Summer Hayes still forced me to drink every day, more than a dozen glasses each night. The pain turned my face deathly pale. But I kept enduring it, until the banquet ended and I could rush to the bathroom to vomit violently. This time I passed out. When I came to, I found myself lying in bed at home. My dirty clothes had been changed. Someone was keeping watch beside the bed. It was Hannah Shaw. Hannah Shaw was my college classmate. All these years, she'd been quietly taking care of me. Right now, she was clutching my crumpled test results in her hand, reading every word over and over again. Hannah studied medicine. She understood exactly what those test results meant. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She asked, trembling, "You have stomach cancer?" Her heart was breaking. She immediately grabbed my hand. "You can't keep going like this. You need to leave her right now and get treatment at the hospital." But I pulled my hand away. I forced a smile. "It's not that serious. Don't worry. I'll take care of myself." Seeing how resolute I was, Hannah Shaw knew she couldn't convince me. She knew even better that Ryan Hayes' death 5 years ago was a pain I could never move past. Hannah Shaw couldn't argue with me, so she stayed, taking care of me through the night. The next morning she left for the hospital, and I rushed to the office to work. Today I had to accompany Summer Hayes to a banquet. But I wasn't her boyfriend. I was just going as her assistant. Tyler Crawford was her boyfriend. When he saw me, Tyler Crawford's face was full of false warmth. Ethan Sinclair, I really admire you. Still shameless enough to follow Summer around. I didn't argue back, just stood silently to the side. Then Summer Hayes walked over. Tyler Crawford easily took her hand. Summer Hayes didn't refuse. But when she looked at me, her eyes grew several degrees colder. Who said you could attend the banquet? Wait outside. Seattle had descended into winter. Out there, no heater, only the icy wind cutting through. But I just nodded. All right. With that, I turned and walked out of the banquet hall. Outside was an open garden. Not even a roof for shelter. I stood in the freezing wind, my thin frame trembling. A server took pity on me. Asked if I wanted to come inside and rest. I silently shook my head. I stood there until nightfall. Until the banquet ended. Summer Hayes walked out wearing Tyler Crawford's coat. The two of them saw me still standing out there. Something flickered in her eyes. Her voice inexplicably grew hoarse. What are you hiding out here for? Are you coming or not? She pulled Tyler Crawford's hand and walked away. I followed behind them. As we passed the artificial lake in the garden, Tyler Crawford's mouth curved into a smirk. He suddenly lurched forward several steps, pretending someone had pushed him. Oh no, my watch fell in the lake. He whirled around furiously to glare at me. Who told you to push me? I shot back immediately. I didn't. Still making excuses? Tyler Crawford grabbed Summer Hayes' hand. Summer, that was my favorite watch. Summer Hayes looked at me. For how many seconds, I couldn't tell. Then she said quietly, jump in and get it. Without asking anything, she convicted me on the spot. I looked down at the water. Even from here, I could feel the bone-chilling cold. But I silently stepped in. The lake wasn't deep, only knee-high. But winter water cut straight to the bone. Each step felt like walking barefoot across shards of ice. I was already weak to begin with. I searched and searched, my body trembling violently. Summer Hayes only watched for a few seconds before turning away, leaving behind one sentence. If you don't find it, don't bother coming in tomorrow. With that, she led Tyler Crawford away. I stood alone in the lake, an indescribable sadness welling up inside me. I bent down and searched through the entire night. Finally found the watch, but when I shakily stood up, my body had long since gone numb. Still, step by step, I rushed back to the company building with the watch. Tyler Crawford was in her office. He took the watch, but only looked at it with disgust. It's covered in mud, completely filthy. I don't want it anymore. With that, he yanked it off and threw it in the trash. Summer Hayes only glanced at it once. Said indifferently, if you don't like it, forget it. I'll buy you a new one. Tyler Crawford beamed. Summer, you're so good to me. I walked out, bedraggled and humiliated. The CEO's office staff who saw me like this had long grown used to it. Over the years, I'd endured so much suffering. They didn't understand why I still insisted on staying. I didn't even ask for a single day off. Just casually took 2 cold medicine pills. Then went with Summer Hayes on her inspection tour. A few more days passed. Because I hadn't been consistently treating it, plus my constant drinking irritating my stomach, my condition grew worse by the day. But each time I just hastily swallowed 2 pills. Barely getting by. Today was the weekend. I lay on the sofa, in too much pain to move. Then I got a call from Summer Hayes. Crawford wants the mini wontons from Chen's shop. Go buy him a serving. As Summer Hayes' assistant, I never had a day off. Whenever she needed me, I had to work immediately. But today I really was in too much pain to get up. Could Assistant Wong go buy it today? But before I could finish, Summer Hayes cut me off coldly. Ethan Sinclair, did I say you had a choice? I couldn't breathe, couldn't say anything more. Either go, or never show your face again. With that, she hung up. I could only force myself through the pain to stand. Stumbling toward the door, Chen's wonton shop was on a street very far away. But it was always packed. I waited in line for 3 full hours. Finally got a serving, but when I rushed to Summer Hayes' place and handed her the wontons, Tyler Crawford's face turned cold. Who told you to add chili oil? The pain made it hard to breathe. Don't you like spicy food? Tyler Crawford casually dumped out the wontons. I don't like spicy anymore. Summer Hayes looked at me heavily. Go buy it again. I could only rush back out. The second time I brought them back, Tyler Crawford complained there were dried shrimp inside. Summer Hayes, as if she couldn't see him deliberately torturing me, just said flatly, go buy it again. I ran back and forth several times like that. By the time I bought the last one, it was already dark. I carried the packaged wontons, weak and exhausted on the way back. My stomach sent waves of violent pain. My steps faltered. My mind went hazy. I couldn't see the road ahead clearly at all. I only heard a sudden sound by my ear. A deafening horn. A truck slammed into me, knocking me to the ground. I rolled several times, under that kind of impact. I couldn't hold it in anymore, suddenly vomiting up a huge mouthful of fresh blood. In that instant the fragrance of wontons scattered across the pavement. Everything before my eyes turned to snowflakes. Blurred and unclear, then complete unconsciousness. The hospital. When Hannah Shaw saw the person being rushed to emergency, was actually me. Her eyes went wide with shock. She called out several times, Ethan Sinclair. Ethan Sinclair, but the person on the bed didn't respond. I just kept vomiting blood. Even the chief physician was startled. Is it internal organ rupture? Hannah Shaw spoke up in panic. He has stomach cancer. The doctor's expression immediately changed. They rushed me into emergency surgery. Several hours later, the surgery ended. But they'd only stopped the bleeding from the external injuries caused by the accident. All the machines showed. My vital signs were declining. Hannah Shaw was frantic. Professor, what's wrong with him? The professor shook his head. Late-stage stomach cancer. His body was already extremely weak. The accident triggered early organ failure. I didn't wake up in the hospital bed. Just kept coughing up blood, while unconsciously calling out a name over and over. Summer Hayes. Looking like the next moment would be my last breath. Hannah Shaw, eyes red-rimmed, grabbed my hand. Her voice choked. Ethan, hold on, please hold on. I'll go get her to see you. Just wait a little longer. A little longer. With that, she shakily took out my phone and called Summer Hayes. The person on the other end answered, her voice cold. Ethan Sinclair, I told you to buy wontons. Can't you even manage that? Hannah Shaw clenched her fists. It's me, Hannah Shaw. The person on the other end went silent for a few seconds. Then slowly spoke. Why do you have his phone? Hannah Shaw watched the heartbeat on the monitor gradually flatline. Her voice trembling. Each word deliberate. Come to the hospital. See Ethan Sinclair one last time. The other end went silent again, for who knows how long. Summer Hayes let out a cold laugh. Hannah Shaw. Did he tell you to put on this act with him? Hannah Shaw wanted to kill Summer Hayes. She choked out a scream. Ethan Sinclair, he's. But the next moment, a weak hand pulled her back. Looking down, she saw the person who'd been unconscious just moments ago had suddenly awakened. I struggled to shake my head, mouthing the words to her. Don't let her come. And at that moment on the monitor, my heartbeat suddenly began to rise, very slowly. On the other end came Summer Hayes's hoarse, questioning voice. What's wrong with him? But Hannah Shaw didn't have time to explain. Seeing the heartbeat rising, overjoyed beyond words, she hung up, quickly ran to get the professor. After another round of examinations, the doctor removed his mask. Drenched in sweat, breathing a sigh of relief. His vital signs have stabilized. Quickly, move him to the observation room. Then they wheeled me into observation. Meanwhile, after Hannah Shaw hung up on her, Summer Hayes stared at the phone for a long time. Tyler Crawford saw her distracted because of me again. A flash of hatred crossed his eyes. Summer, they're definitely working together to trick you. Just trying to get your attention. After all these years. Isn't Ethan tired of playing this game? With that, he tried to take Summer Hayes's hand. But she suddenly stood up, so he missed. Summer spoke quietly. I still have work to finish. You go ahead. Tyler Crawford had thought. Today he'd finally get to stay the night. Hearing this, he could only leave in frustration. In her office, Summer Hayes stared at the computer. But her heart felt tangled like knotted thread. She couldn't calm down no matter what. Finally, she called another assistant. Find out where Ethan Sinclair is right now. She heard her own voice trembling. The assistant acknowledged. More than 10 minutes later, the assistant called back. Ms. Hayes. Assistant Sinclair was in an accident a few hours ago. He's currently at Peace Hospital. But he's already past the critical stage. Summer Hayes held the phone, silent for a long time. So long that the assistant couldn't help but ask, "Do you want to visit him?" Summer Hayes stayed quiet for a very long time. But only said, "Don't let him know." I asked. The assistant was slightly surprised. "All right." Then the phone went dead. Summer Hayes said nothing more. Only that night, the light in her office stayed on until dawn. The next day at the hospital, my spirits improved slightly. Hannah Shaw remained by my side constantly. She practically begged me, "Ethan, you really can't delay this any longer. You need to be admitted for chemotherapy immediately. Otherwise you won't last much longer." But I just smiled and shook my head. That would be perfect. I've been waiting for that day all along. Hannah Shaw was completely stunned. A violent pain tore through her heart. Her voice shaking. "Do you have to punish yourself like this? Death isn't punishment for me. Hannah, thank you for being by my side all these years. If you really care about me, then let me make my own decision. I'm begging you. 5 years ago, my soul died completely. Now it's finally time for my body to follow." Within a few days, despite Hannah Shaw's attempts to stop me, I rushed to discharge myself. Because Ryan Hayes' death anniversary had arrived, I carried a bouquet of chrysanthemums to the cemetery. I stood before the grave, looking at the black and white photo of that handsome young man. He was so young, so handsome, so kind. But his life had stopped forever on that day. "Ryan, you don't want to see me, do you? All these years, every night I've dreamed of you. Every night in my dreams, I apologize to you. I wish I could go back to that day. If I could go back, I definitely wouldn't run." I sat down on the ground, leaning against the headstone. Just like before when we'd share secrets. "Do you know? I'll be able to join you soon. But I'm scared. I'm scared you won't want to see me. Scared that you'll hate me too." Cold wind howled through the cemetery. I caressed his photograph, an indescribable pain welling up inside. I whispered, "Whether you hate me or not, I'm still coming to find you. We promised we'd be brothers for life." I stayed at the cemetery for a long time, about to leave, when I saw a group of people approaching from the other side. My steps suddenly froze. In the group, Summer Hayes spotted me immediately too. This was the first time we'd seen each other since my accident. She saw the flowers in front of Ryan Hayes' grave. Her eyes, cold as ice, dropped. A second later, Mrs. Hayes beside her saw me. She immediately charged forward and grabbed me. Mrs. Hayes slapped me hard across the face. "Who gave you permission to come here? Get out." The slap left me reeling. I couldn't help stumbling back a step. "Aunt, I just came to visit." Mrs. Hayes roared, "Shut up. You have no right to visit him. You got Ryan killed. Get out." My left cheek quickly swelled red. I endured the pain without daring to speak. Mr. Hayes hurried to hold back his emotional wife. "Ethan Sinclair, please leave. Don't come back." But Mrs. Hayes still wasn't satisfied. She touched the flowers on the ground and immediately recoiled. Then with trembling hands, she grabbed them and hurled them at me. Sobbing bitterly, "We don't need your fake condolences. If you hadn't run that year, if you'd stayed to help him, why would Ryan have died so horribly? 5 drunk men. You left him there alone. Left him to be beaten to death by 5 drunk men. When he died, there wasn't a single part of his body unharmed." Mrs. Hayes' hatred for me was absolute, even though everyone knew that if I hadn't run that year, the final result would have been both of us dead. It was just that Ryan Hayes' death was too tragic. It blinded everyone with hatred. They resented that I hadn't let Ryan Hayes go first. They made sure those drunk men would never leave prison, and I had to live forever in guilt, unable to escape. Mrs. Hayes cried while hitting me. Her blows showed no mercy. "My Ryan, he was so young. He was so kind. Why did you run? Why did you leave him there alone?" Finally she shoved me hard. "Why was it Ryan who died? Why aren't you dead yet?" I was pushed into the wall. My head struck another gravestone. Blood covered my forehead. Summer Hayes's fingers clenched tight. After I staggered to my feet, she forcefully grabbed my arm. "Mom, don't get upset in front of Ryan. I'll throw him out now." With that, she dragged me outside. Outside the cemetery, she threw me down hard again. Summer Hayes's eyes were pitch black. Through gritted teeth, "Do you want to die? I warned you, never to come here again." Her eyes were also full of rage, but seemed to carry something else too. I spoke bitterly. "I wanted to see Ryan." Summer Hayes's voice was ice cold. "You don't deserve to." With that, she suddenly turned and walked back into the cemetery, leaving her bodyguard to chase me away. That phrase, "you don't deserve to," stabbed straight into my heart like a knife. I stumbled away. I walked down the street, my face covered in tears. Ryan Hayes's clear voice echoed in my ears. "Ethan, this watch is half yours, half mine. We'll be brothers for life. Don't ever leave me, okay? Ethan, yesterday I saw my sister picking out wedding rings. She's planning to propose. Once she's in charge of you, it'll be hard to hang out. Let's go see a movie tonight? Ethan, run faster, run." Tears soaked my entire face. "Ryan, do you know how much I regret not standing in front of you that day? Not letting you go. If it had been me who died, not so many people would be heartbroken. An orphan dies, and that's just that. If I'd died in that moment, Summer Hayes might have loved me forever. We wouldn't have ended up like this." The more I thought about it, the more it hurt. Finally, I couldn't bear it anymore. My emotions broke like a dam bursting. I crouched down on the ground, sobbing. The next day I called in sick. I made a trip to the temple. Recently there was a temple at South Mountain said to be very spiritual. Over the years I'd been to South Mountain Temple countless times, each time kneeling before Buddha for hours, praying for Ryan Hayes to find peace in the afterlife, praying for Summer Hayes to be safe and healthy. But from now on, I might not have another chance to come. This time I knelt beneath the Bodhi tree at South Mountain Temple. They say if you prove your sincerity, you can ask the temple for their most precious treasures. By evening, heavy snow suddenly began to fall. The wind and snow lashed against me. I was frozen to the point of delirium. My entire body racked with violent pain. So much pain that even in such freezing weather, my forehead dripped with sweat. I trembled constantly. Finally, with a splat, I vomited up the first mouthful of blood. But I still didn't stand up. I knelt for a day and a night. At dawn, a monk from the temple saw half my body buried in snow. He walked toward me, then discovered a pool of blood in the snow. Amitabha Buddha. Such devotion. What do you wish to pray for? My face deathly pale, I staggered to my feet, pressing my palms together in prayer. I wish to ask for longevity bamboo and a protection amulet. Longevity bamboo. It's said that if you place it before the memorial tablet of the deceased and burn it, it can bless them with carefree reincarnation. After receiving the items, I shakily went to the office. This was the only thing I could give them before leaving. But I knew Summer Hayes would never accept a gift from me, so I could only wait until the lunch hour when no one was around to secretly place the longevity bamboo on Summer Hayes's desk. As for the protection amulet, I planned when I had the chance later to secretly place it in her car. When I went downstairs, I didn't leave. I wanted to know if Summer Hayes would take the longevity bamboo home. So I waited downstairs at the company until she got off work. 6:30. Summer Hayes came downstairs, holding the bag with my longevity bamboo. My eyes lit up, but then I saw her hand the bag to an assistant, pointing him in a direction, toward the trash bins. I immediately followed the assistant. Really saw him go to a nearby dumpster, about to throw away the longevity bamboo. I panicked instantly, seeing the assistant about to toss the longevity bamboo. I rushed over in horror. "Don't throw it away." I snatched the bag back, but found nothing inside. Right then, Summer Hayes's cold voice came from behind me. "I knew it was you." My mind went blank. I slowly turned around, saw the longevity bamboo still in her hand. The assistant left. Summer Hayes walked toward me with the longevity bamboo, her voice bone chillingly cold. "You owe Ryan, and you think doing these stupid things can make up for it? I didn't explain anymore, just said. I just wanted to give him one last thing. Summer Haze snapped the longevity bamboo in half. Don't need it. I lunged forward to stop her, but could only watch helplessly as it broke in two, thrown by Summer Haze into the garbage. In that motion, she didn't notice. Something else fell out of the bag. Summer Haze, quick-eyed and fast-handed, caught it. Recognized it as a protection amulet. Her hands clenched tight. Then I heard Summer Haze. Her voice cold and mocking. Every day claiming to atone, yet still praying for your own safety. Ethan Sinclair, you're as afraid of death as ever. She laughed coldly and threw the thing away. The protection amulet landed right in a puddle on the ground. Do you even deserve peace? You should be tortured for the rest of your life. Leaving those words behind, Summer Haze walked away coldly, leaving me standing frozen in place, staring numbly at the two things I'd struggled to obtain, both destroyed, just like my life. In the end, still an empty dream. I picked up the soaked protection amulet. She hadn't seen that inside I'd hidden a small piece of paper, praying for Summer Haze's peace and safety, joy and good fortune. The 4 words smeared by water, no longer visible in their original form. A sweet metallic taste surged up my throat. I swallowed down my tears drop by drop. 3 days later I returned to work at the company. Though my external injuries from the accident had mostly healed, my stomach cancer grew more severe by the day. When Hannah Shaw came to my house and tried repeatedly to persuade me, she still couldn't stop me. That night Summer Haze took me to another drinking banquet. The others did their best to force alcohol down me. I kept drinking. Assistant Sinclair really can hold his liquor. So generous. My stomach burned with discomfort. Amidst the noise, Summer Haze always watched me drink in silence. In the end, I drank from start to finish at this banquet too. Near the end, I snuck away to the bathroom to take 2 pills. I forced myself through the pain to return to the banquet room, only to find it was already over. Summer Haze had left. I'd grown used to it long ago. Thought she'd abandoned me alone again. I silently walked out, planning to catch a cab home. Stepping out of the venue, exposed to the cold wind, the headlights on the road ahead, all blurred into a haze before my eyes. My eyes full of drunkenness. Without realizing it, I stepped into the middle of the road, raising my hand to hail a car. The traffic saw the pedestrian suddenly appear just in time, honking frantically, but my movements were sluggish. Just as I was about to be hit, a hand suddenly pulled me back to the curb. Her warm breath kept washing over me. I looked up to see Summer Haze's dark eyes. Trying to get hit again? I stared at her numbly. My mind suddenly blank. We were pressed close together. I suddenly remembered years ago, when all the school clubs gathered at the beach. I'd never seen the ocean before. Excitedly went to the shore to collect shells. Ended up nearly tripping when a crab on the beach nipped me. Summer Haze quickly reached out to catch me. Our lips touched from the momentum. Then I kissed her harder and harder. Everyone else was busy looking at the ocean. No one noticed. The school's ice queen being pinned down and kissed however I wanted. Ocean breeze, bonfire, friends, the tail end of youth. Amidst the lively crowd, confessing hazy feelings to their fullest. Turns out that was the most beautiful moment of my life. I wonder if Summer Haze remembered anything. She didn't let go for a long time. Suddenly an angry voice came from behind. Tyler Crawford had come to pick up Summer Haze. Saw this scene. What are you two doing? Summer Haze finally seemed to wake up. She pushed me away. Something flashed across her face. She said nothing. Just turned and walked toward Tyler Crawford. It's nothing. Let's go. Tyler Crawford stared hard at me. Took Summer Haze's hand and left. And I still stood frozen in place. As if drunk. As if still immersed in memories. Until Hannah Shaw came out. Looking for me. Finally took my unconscious, drunk self home. Late that night, I'd just gotten home. My phone received a message. From the old school friends group chat. This Saturday at Blue Moon, everyone get together. Followed by a long string of tagged names. I saw my own name. Also saw Summer Haze. Both our names. Now only placed side by side like this. Many people in the group got excited. Everyone responded enthusiastically. as if returning to right after graduation, when no one could bear to say goodbye. That Saturday I went to the reunion. I wanted to see these people one last time. Wanted to give my youth a final farewell. But I didn't expect Summer Hayes to come too. She'd never liked attending these social gatherings. Before, it was always Ryan Hayes and I dragging her along. But today she not only came. She even brought Tyler Crawford. A whole group drinking, singing karaoke, chatting. Before long they started cheering and playing games. All right, spin the wheel. Whoever it lands on has to complete a truth or dare challenge. Summer Hayes was outside taking a work call, so she was absent. And I wasn't very good at these games, but was still pulled in to play. The wheel spun. The first round pointed to me. The challenge was to kiss the next person who walked through the door within 10 minutes. I held the paper in silence. Tyler Crawford looked smug. Ethan Sinclair, I know you're too noble for this. If you really can't do it, then how about you kneel down and shine my shoes instead? The challenge will be cancelled. I looked at his mischievous expression. Clenched my fingers. I was someone about to die anyway. What did kissing someone matter? I said calmly, I choose the challenge. Tyler Crawford wasn't surprised. Instead, his smile deepened. A cunning gleam flickered in his eyes. At the other end of the hallway, Summer Hayes finished her phone call, turned around to see a dirty vagrant approaching excitedly, still on the phone with a friend, bragging, I just got a big job. Someone wants to prank a handsome guy. Specifically hired me to go kiss him. The vagrant hung up as he reached the room door. He ended the call, then lewdly licked his lips about to push open the door. Just as he was about to step inside, someone suddenly grabbed him forcefully from behind. As it turned out, Summer Hayes said something coldly, then stepped into the room one step ahead. Everyone saw it was her who walked in. Immediately fell silent. Tyler Crawford's expression changed completely. How did this happen? I was also somewhat surprised, looking at Summer Hayes. And Summer Hayes, acting as if she had no idea what was going on, said coldly, why is everyone staring at me? Someone hesitantly responded, Ethan Sinclair got the challenge. Has to kiss the first person who walks through the door within 10 minutes. Summer Hayes calmly sat down, clearly not planning to carry out this ridiculous game. Tyler Crawford quickly added, right. Let's just skip this round. Everyone knows Summer Hayes has a fiancé. Everyone hurried to turn the page on this. The reunion ended. Tyler Crawford cursed at the vagrant in private. Didn't I tell you to get in there fast? The vagrant also looked innocent. It really wasn't my fault. That woman forcefully pulled me back. I even suspect she did it on purpose. Thinking about how Summer Hayes had protected me, Tyler Crawford's face looked terrible. The two families had been engaged for 2 years already. She'd never once mentioned marriage. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. After chasing the vagrant away, he made a phone call. The next day Summer Hayes was called home by her parents. You needed something? Mrs. Hayes asked her, somewhat displeased. I'm asking you, when do you plan to marry Tyler Crawford? You two have been engaged for so long. Crawford's been complaining. The Crawford family wants you two to marry soon. Summer Hayes's expression didn't change. The company's very busy right now. Mrs. Hayes saw right through her. Those are all excuses. Don't think I don't know. You won't marry Tyler Crawford. Because you still can't forget that man, Ethan Sinclair. Summer Hayes's tea-drinking motion suddenly stopped. Her expression immediately turned cold. Mrs. Hayes, seeing her daughter like this, knew she'd guessed correctly. She was furious beyond measure. You and Ethan Sinclair are absolutely impossible. With that, she dragged Summer Hayes before Ryan Hayes's memorial photo. Are you planning to marry someone who got your brother killed? I know too. The real murderer who killed Ryan wasn't him. But he indirectly caused Ryan's death. Ryan died protecting him. If he hadn't run, Ryan wouldn't have died so horribly. There might have been a slim chance of survival. Our family can't get past this. No matter what, he can never step foot in our home. Unless I'm dead too. Mrs. Hayes scolded while crying. Finally clutching Ryan Hayes's memorial photo tightly. Sobbing uncontrollably. Looking at Ryan Hayes's young, tender face in the photo. And her crying mother. Summer Hayes felt something heavy pressing on her heart. couldn't breathe. She spoke slowly, saying the truth she'd known all along. I won't marry Ethan Sinclair. Mrs. Hayes immediately pressed on. But that's not enough. Then in front of your brother. Promise me you'll marry Tyler Crawford. Summer Hayes was silent for 1 second. 2 seconds. 3 seconds. Finally she slowly spoke. I will marry Tyler Crawford. At dawn. Summer Hayes still stood before her bedroom window, holding a slightly worn diamond ring. It was the engagement ring from that year between her and me. Back then we were so close. So close to being able to marry. Now, she stared silently at that ring for a long, long time. Finally closed her eyes and flung it away. The ring immediately disappeared into the silent night. A few days later I just returned from a hospital checkup. Saw a car downstairs. Summer Hayes was already by the car as if waiting for me. Just like back in college, when she'd wait downstairs at my dorm. I hid the medicine I'd gotten and walked toward her. You looking for me? Summer Hayes looked up at me. Suddenly noticed I seemed much thinner, my face. Also very pale. Something flickered in her eyes but she didn't ask anything. Just took an envelope from her bag. I looked down and saw the invitation. The blood in my body froze solid. I didn't move for a long time. Until Summer Hayes' voice came from above. Tyler Crawford and I are getting married. Just letting you know. Don't come. And don't congratulate me either. Wave after wave of pain crashed through my heart. So she hated me. Hated me so much she never wanted to see me again? I took the invitation with trembling hands. In the end, didn't have the courage to look up. To let her see my expression. Just nodded silently. I wish you happiness. Summer Hayes and Tyler Crawford's wedding was in a week. I submitted my resignation to the company. It was approved very quickly. Summer Hayes was getting married and didn't want to see me anymore. I didn't even have a reason left to live and atone. 3 days before her wedding, I took stock of my assets from all these years. Working at the company all those years, I'd actually saved quite a bit of money. I sold my house. Donated all the money to the Hope Project. 2 days before her wedding, I made a trip to the cemetery. I bought the plot next to Ryan Hayes. And instructed the staff, don't put my name on the headstone. No one's going to visit my grave anyway. That way when the Hayes family sees it, they won't know it's me. And they won't be angry. 1 day before her wedding, I began arranging my final affairs. I called someone to haul away trash. All my belongings in the house. Everything dragged outside. Finally in the empty apartment. Only one large cardboard box remained. Inside were Summer Hayes' and my student IDs from high school. Movie tickets from our first date. And photos of us together. Gifts she'd given me. Letters we'd written each other. I lit incense. These memory-filled objects. Things I'd looked through countless times in the dead of night over the years. I burned them all, one by one. I sat in the empty apartment until the next morning's sun rose. Today was Summer Hayes' wedding. I staggered to my feet. Suddenly saw a patch of blood red on the floor. I touched my face. Only then realized I was bleeding. But I paid no attention. Stumbled unsteadily outside. Today was a rare sunny day. But I still trembled all over. I walked while bleeding. Passers-by stared at me in shock. But I didn't stop for even a step. Finally stopped on a large bridge. Below the bridge was bottomlessly deep water. Must be bone-chillingly cold. I sat on the bridge railing and called the hospital. Hello. I'm going to die today. Please come collect my body. Then immediately harvest my organs. After hanging up, I stared numbly at the river's surface. Face covered in blood. But the corners of my mouth twitched into a smile. Finally it's over. I only felt relief. Today was her wedding bliss. I'd sink to the river bottom. This was the most beautiful ending I could think of. Smiling, I closed my eyes. And jumped resolutely. Never to see Summer Hayes again. Half an hour later at the wedding venue. Summer Hayes stood on stage in her wedding dress. Watching Tyler Crawford in his tuxedo walk toward her. She was in a daze. But her mind was full of my voice. Ethan, what kind of wedding do you want? I want something really simple. Want it on a huge lawn. Hung with colorful balloons everywhere. Only invite our closest friends. Have Ryan be my best man. The Hayes family wedding can't be simple. Summer Hayes, Who said I'd marry you? Back then neither of us thought that in the end I really wouldn't be able to marry her. Before her eyes, all she saw was my face, going through the ceremony mechanically. Until the two were about to exchange rings. An assistant suddenly rushed over. Ms. Hayes, your phone keeps ringing. Summer Hayes frowned. Don't you realize what occasion this is? The assistant was also in a difficult position. But it's been ringing for so long. I'm afraid it might be urgent. So she still took the phone. Call. Tried an unfamiliar number. She swiped to answer. An angry roar came through the phone. It was Hannah Shaw's voice. Summer Hayes's expression immediately turned cold. Hannah Shaw. This better be important. The other side said just one sentence. Summer Hayes suddenly went deathly pale. With a crash, the phone fell to the ground. The next second, everyone at the venue saw the bride go mad. Suddenly grabbed her wedding dress and ran outside. Tyler Crawford on stage kept calling after her. But Summer Hayes acted as if she couldn't hear anything. Her mind full of that sentence from the phone call. Summer Hayes, Ethan Sinclair is dead. He jumped into the river and died. Today, the annual Business Exchange Conference proceeded as usual. Everyone seated in the conference hall was an executive from top-tier companies. But no matter who you asked, the person everyone focused on was that one. The legendary Summer Hayes. 3 years had honed her into someone even more exceptional. Left the family company to start her own business. From a talented young person to now mature and thoroughly calculated. She'd used just 1/4's outstanding report to successfully mark her first chapter. Now Summer Hayes relied on not that family enterprise's deep foundation, but the new industry she'd successfully pioneered. Do you know why young CEO Hayes had to go out and start her own business? This rare gossip made the young man very interested. This was his first time attending this event, meeting so many big names like this. The senior colleague beside him kept talking. You might not believe this. That year young CEO Hayes ran away from her own wedding. I don't know all the details. She abandoned the groom she'd been with for years. Just jumped in her Panamera and sped off. Rich people's marriages aren't as simple as we think. Her running from that marriage was basically slapping her own parents twice across the face. And slapping the Alliance family twice too. After that, old CEO Hayes threatened her with her career. She just let go and quit. Oh my God, this insider gossip shocked the young man. So do you know why she ran? Tell me quick. Don't leave me hanging. I already said I don't know all the details. Just that someone at the venue said, young CEO Hayes got a phone call and ran. My guess is, something happened to the person she really loved. Love unreturned, wanting but unable to have, truly a grand drama. The young man looked terrified toward the back, at the tall figure. With an overwhelming presence, the woman, her face deathly pale, frantically tugging at the senior's sleeve. The senior still looked unsatisfied. What? Why are you pulling me? Wait, the junior manager just said we're blocking the view. The young man bowed his head, thinking to himself he was definitely about to die. Ms. Hayes, is there something we can help you with? Summer Hayes had been standing behind them listening for who knows how long. She had an intimidatingly cold face, hair flowing past her waist, dark, penetrating eyes, looking very serious. Where's the restroom? The senior finally turned around, legs trembling. Serious. Where's the restroom? The senior finally turned around, legs trembling. He only hated that he was a man. Tried to squeeze out a smile on his stiff muscles, twitching like he had some disease. Ms. Hayes, follow me. The expected fury never came. Under his trembling guidance, Summer Hayes walked into the restroom. He didn't dare move, just stood outside the door waiting for her wrath. But when Summer Hayes came out, she only looked at him once. Said to herself, you were right. The man couldn't understand for a moment. Summer Hayes continued, the person I loved is dead. Just a few simple words. No different from earth-shattering thunder. He gaped, staring blankly at Summer Hayes. Drying her hands, said calmly, your information's quite accurate. You're wasted here. Come work at my company. The senior was just as confused. Was this sarcasm or a real offer? He knew Summer Hayes now ran a medical company. His expertise didn't match at all. His head nearly wanted to bow to the floor. But a pale hand appeared before him, holding a business card. Summer Hayes' name clearly printed on it. Bring that young guy from earlier with you. Senior. Never in his wildest dreams would he think gossiping could land him a job. His hands shook violently as if electrocuted. Looking at that cold-faced person on stage, straight as a sword, Summer Hayes, he pinched a chunk of his own flesh. He struggled to say, I must be dreaming. Or the big boss wants to lure me in. Then kill me. I'm Aaron Shea. Are you really content being a hotel manager your whole life? Whatever, I'm in. He told this to Stephen Su. Stephen Su reacted the same way. Even after the banquet ended, the two still hadn't stopped trembling. Stephen Su said with a funeral face, Mr. Shea, I heard more gossip about young CEO Hayes. Want to hear it? Isn't young CEO Hayes' company related to medicine? I heard. She did it because her lover died of cancer. That's why she devoted herself to researching this field. Listen, now the company's development is simply skyrocketing. You said young CEO Hayes called your information accurate. Probably wants you as her assistant. Holding on to this nerve-wracking uncertainty, they both went to Summer Hayes' company for interviews. This medical company was called Remembrance. Without even thinking, Stephen Su could guess. That name must be from the boss's lover. Holding Summer Hayes' business card, they didn't even need to wait. The receptionist looked at Stephen Su's face, smiled brightly and said, Ms. Hayes is waiting for you upstairs. The receptionist was quite beautiful. Aaron Shea's gaze traveled between her and Stephen Su. Frowning deeply. Don't you think that guy looks like you? Does he? Stephen Su used his phone's black screen as a mirror to look. Continuously. Observing multiple times, he really did see a bit of resemblance. Really a bit similar around the eyes. By the time they reached Summer Hayes' office, both Stephen Su and Aaron Shea understood. Whether the senior or him, they both resembled someone. The photo frame on the boss's desk. Inside was a Polaroid photo. Two boys smiling freely. One looked somewhat like Summer Hayes. The other resembled a combination of Stephen Su and the senior. This must be young CEO Hayes' lover and family member. They thought in unison. Summer Hayes seemed to have just returned from a drinking event, still carrying a faint smell of alcohol. Sat on the sofa frowning. If you want the job, go downstairs to HR to process paperwork. Someone will show you the ropes later. Salary calculated according to probation period. If you accept, you can sign the contract. Over the past 3 years, whenever she saw anyone who resembled me even slightly, whether male or female, Summer Hayes tried to keep them near her. She never touched these people. The abbot at South Mountain Temple said as long as you do good for someone, keep strict discipline, think of that person constantly, chant sutras day and night for their salvation, then you can ensure that person's journey through reincarnation is worry-free. And their next life's rebirth goes smoothly. Summer Hayes could do that. She placed those people before her eyes. As if, through their faces that somewhat resembled mine, she could see that person still living beside her. It seemed as long as she did this, she wouldn't have nightmares every night anymore. Summer Hayes didn't know what people said about her outside. She wasn't very interested in knowing either. Ever since the day I died under clear blue skies for miles, Seattle's sky was never bright again. The sun stayed hidden behind clouds all day. The hazy things in the air weren't just fog but filled. Everything gray, always shrouding around her. She couldn't breathe. Every minute, every second felt like drowning. Hannah Shaw's red-rimmed eyes remained seared in her mind, like a pair of red warning lights piercing the heart. Hanging high above Summer Hayes' head, monitoring her every move. Over the past 3 years she'd had so many dreams. Dreaming of Ryan Hayes crying and saying, Sis, why didn't you come save me? Then dreaming of me floating on the water's surface, smiling and saying to her, Congratulations on your wedding. I wish you happiness. Regret and pain like raging fire tormented her day and night. Summer Hayes couldn't sleep, standing before the window. Among 10,000 lit homes, was one still his? And after her parents' ultimatum, divorcing Tyler Crawford, Summer Hayes had nowhere to return, could only resolutely from her parents. After divorcing Tyler Crawford, Summer Hayes had nowhere to return. Could only come back to this house that once she and I had bought together. Back then she was still in school without much money. Could only afford this small place of 60 or 70 square meters. Ryan would occasionally stay over. Those were her happiest, most carefree days. The layout of the house was no different from before. It seemed she only had to look up, and I'd appear beside her with a bright smile, holding her. Ryan would dramatically take photos saying, "Sis, you two stop flaunting your happiness." Now beside her was only emptiness. The two most important men in her life had both left her. Just then the phone rang. A call at this hour could only be from that person. The girl's voice was very gentle, like tender willow branches born in spring. "Are you doing okay? Your last checkup was 3 months ago. You should be free by now, right?" Summer Hayes' voice was low. "Let's schedule for tomorrow afternoon. I figured you weren't asleep yet. Did you run out of sleeping pills?" "Yes. Can you prescribe me more next time?" Joanna's voice was soft. "Summer, have you forgotten your previous suicide attempt? I can't prescribe you excessive doses. What you need isn't just sleeping pills. You must come tomorrow afternoon." After hanging up, Summer Hayes sighed helplessly. She rinsed her mouth, then removed her IWC watch strap. Beneath it was a horrifying scar. She spoke to the air itself. "Good night, good night. Good night, Ethan, good night, Ryan." But she couldn't sleep. In the darkness, a swollen male face rose by the bed. His eyes pitch black, lying down. 2 trails of blood-red tears. The floating corpse spoke in my voice. "Summer Hayes, why won't you look at me? Why did you keep forcing alcohol on me when you knew I had stomach cancer? Why, you actually just wanted to kill me for your brother, didn't you? Didn't you?" Summer Hayes stared at him, showing not a trace of fear. "I'm sorry." Ethan's hands squeezed tight around her neck. Summer Hayes felt suffocated. Her cheeks flushed red, but she smiled. She said brokenly, "Ethan, kill me. Kill me, then I can atone to you both." The marks on her neck were too obvious. Joanna only needed one look to know immediately. This was Summer Hayes' unconscious self-harm behavior. Right after her suicide attempt phase, she'd been brought to the hospital under strict supervision. Anything that could harm her was removed from the room by nurses. Joanna happened to be her primary treating physician. That was the first case she'd personally taken on. She'd already checked the room that evening. But that night she inexplicably felt anxious. Went straight to open Summer Hayes' hospital room door. It was already midnight. Summer Hayes wasn't lying in bed. She was sitting in the bathroom corner, using a broken piece of the showerhead, repeatedly scraping at the skin of her wrist. The dull plastic somehow cutting into flesh. After that incident, Summer Hayes became the hospital's key observation subject. 24-hour camera right overhead. She had no more tools for suicide. Until Joanna happened to observe the surveillance monitor. Discovered her with eyes closed, using both hands to squeeze her own throat. That wouldn't kill her. With reduced oxygen, after dizziness, Summer Hayes would naturally release her hands. But Joanna was still terrified. Out of her mind, hardly daring to let Summer Hayes leave her sight for even half a step. 6 months later she was discharged, carrying her scarred body with her, putting on a suit, once again becoming that famous young CEO Hayes with her glorious achievements. But Joanna always kept in touch with her. She tried to keep her voice gentle and calming. "You dreamed about Ethan Sinclair again last night, didn't you?" Summer Hayes looked at her strangely. "Yes." She set down the cup of warm milk. "He wanted to kill me. Wanted to take me away." I agreed. But each time Ethan relents. Her depression clearly hadn't lessened. Each time believing I truly existed. Joanna could only go along with what she said. Otherwise Summer Hayes would immediately refuse to cooperate. But have you thought about why Ryan isn't there? According to what you've said yourself, the responsibility for both Ryan and Ethan rests on your shoulders. Why is it only Ethan who comes to trouble you?" Summer Hayes was clearly stumped by the question for a while. She pondered hastily and drew a conclusion. I deserve to die. She was always this difficult to communicate with. Joanna had accepted this mode of interaction. After all, Summer Hayes didn't harm others. Hadn't reached the level requiring mandatory detention. Could only try to prescribe medication for her. This was also exactly what Summer Hayes wanted. She had no intention of opening her heart. Just wanted these medications to temporarily numb herself, so she could complete her work smoothly. Outsiders all said how successful Summer Hayes was. How exceptional. Only she knew. The money she was making now wasn't nearly enough. 3 years ago, the money I'd put into the Hope Project before dying became one of only 2 reasons she worked so hard. She'd already donated so much money, but still not enough. Summer Hayes carried the medication to her car. Her phone made a soft ting. It was the college class president sending a mass message. This Sunday organizing an 8-year graduation anniversary reunion. Everyone in the city should come. She had zero interest. Silently deleted the message. The reunion was starting. Everyone in the city should come. She had zero interest. Silently deleted the message. Drove to her destination, the Hayes family home. No matter what, they wouldn't allow my grave to be buried next to Ryan Hayes. Summer Hayes didn't beg or plead. She found the nearest gravestone. So the 2 brothers could lean against each other and talk. Holding a bottle of liquor, she sat down on the ground. Summer Hayes's expression carried a hint of haziness. Can you ask Ethan for me? When will he finally let me die? On Ryan Hayes's headstone, he smiled brightly. The sunlight still frozen in his happiest college days. While Summer Hayes had already passed 30, Seattle's winter was cold as a freezer. Last night Summer Hayes had a rare peaceful sleep. Woke up to find it was already 11. She turned off the alarm and rolled out of bed. The consequence of taking medication was that she could only sleep until naturally waking. Lucky today there was no difficult business to handle. Remembering yesterday when Joanna told her, "Get out and connect with nature more. Maybe it'll help improve your mental state." Summer Hayes laughed derisively, but couldn't think of anywhere she could go. As if, besides this psychologist she'd known for 3 years, she had no friends whatsoever, or any existence she could confide everything in. Perhaps following her advice more would make her a bit better. Summer Hayes rummaged through her closet for clothes to wear. Since I died, no one helped her put together a complete outfit suitable for the current occasion. So whether it was a major business banquet or daily work, she could only choose simple outfits that couldn't go wrong, like today's down jacket, windbreaker and regular pants. Actually couldn't really be called harmonious. Fortunately her figure was exceptional. It passed well enough. There were many parks large and small. Summer Hayes randomly chose the furthest one. She had no interest in recreation, but the drive there with soft music playing could at least keep her mind from chaos. An hour's drive wasn't long or short, but the songs on that playlist played over and over. They were the ones I liked. Taking advantage of the red light before starting, a light impact came from behind. Summer Hayes looked in the rearview mirror. A young man on an electric bike, looking terrified at her car's rear. The young man was worried to tears. "I'm so sorry, ma'am." Summer Hayes's car was still that Panamera from years ago. She looked at the scratch, calmly sat back down. The young man chased after, choked up. "I'll pay you compensation. Please leave your contact." He was very young. Made Summer Hayes think of me in college. I'd also traveled like this, through Seattle's freezing mornings, riding far away to tutor. So Summer Hayes shook her head. "No need." The young man shook his head. "No need." The young man insisted on compensating. But Summer Hayes knew repainting this would cost at least $30,000. She grew slightly impatient, directly hit the gas and sped off. Northern winter, all the leaves had fallen. This season very few children came to play in the park. But just entering the park, Summer Hayes heard cheerful laughter. Summer Hayes glanced from afar, didn't care and kept walking. It seemed to be a family. The man holding a child laughing happily. The woman bent over sitting by a picnic blanket, dressed very warmly, raising her hands to arrange the plates. How happy, she assessed inwardly. If Ryan Hayes hadn't died that year, if she was still with me, now the child would be this big too. The park had a huge lake. Since I died, Summer Hayes had been somewhat afraid of water. But today for some reason she really wanted to go closer. The lake's surface rippled with wind-blown waves. Staring too long at the overlapping ripples, as if about to be sucked in, a hurried voice came from behind. "Hey, what are you doing?" Summer Hayes turned around, saw a face she thought she'd never see again in this lifetime. She stepped back, realized half her body was already leaning against the railing. No wonder Hannah Shaw thought she was about to jump. The two confronted each other in silence for a minute, until the little girl Hannah Shaw was holding tilted her head, looking at Summer Hayes curiously. "What are you doing, miss?" Perhaps too long without conversation. When Summer Hayes opened her mouth, it was unexpectedly hoarse. I'm enjoying the view." The little girl was very understanding. "Then step back a bit. Don't fall in the lake. The water's very cold." Hannah Shaw remained silent the whole time. "This was 3 years ago. After I died and Summer Hayes rushed to see me one last time. After being severely beaten by Hannah Shaw. The first time they'd met since." Hannah Shaw's mouth twitched. What a coincidence. That smile held no warmth. Cold as ice. "Long time no see, Ms. Hayes. Long time." Her soul felt forced out of her body. Summer Hayes looked at Hannah Shaw expressionlessly, noticed her clenched fists, and the little girl's innocent face. Her voice wavered, so much even she couldn't hear clearly. Summer Hayes looked flatly at Hannah Shaw. "You got married? Congratulations." The little girl seemed already very practiced at explaining this routine. Giggled. "This is my aunt, not my mom. Miss, do I look a lot like my aunt?" "Everyone says so." Hannah Shaw clearly didn't want the little girl talking much with Summer Hayes. "All right, sweetheart, don't talk too much with strangers." Hannah Shaw's expression was terrible. The little girl talked more with Summer Hayes. "All right, sweetheart, don't talk too much with strangers." Hannah Shaw's expression was terrible. The little girl obediently hugged her neck, lying on her shoulder, stuck her tongue out at Summer Hayes, then waved at her. Summer Hayes unconsciously waved back. Hannah Shaw had suddenly returned. Summer Hayes thought 3 years ago when Hannah Shaw quit the hospital, she seemed to go straight to another province. Didn't expect they'd meet again. Actually, Hannah Shaw as a doctor was no match for Summer Hayes. 3 years ago, rather than calling it a fight, it was more that Hannah Shaw one-sidedly pinned her to the ground, beat her for a long time. She had no strength to resist. Through the successive violent punches, had a tooth knocked out, occasionally touching that missing tooth with her tongue. Both her mouth and head ached faintly. Summer Hayes's body would forever be missing something, just like she'd forever lost me. Painfully unforgettable. But Hannah Shaw suddenly caring for a child with another man was truly beyond Summer Hayes's expectations. She thought Hannah Shaw would be like her, never loving anyone again for the rest of her life. But this was also very normal. She'd taken it upon herself to make a grave beside mine, but had no right to be the deceased's wife. Everything was a consequence she'd brought on herself. If Summer Hayes hadn't tormented me in every way, why would I have killed myself in the freezing lake water? It was her extreme coldness and cruelty. As Ryan Hayes's best friend, before his death, I grieved no less than anyone. But the whole family was like using a sharp broom to chase away a bird seeking temporary rest. Agonizingly desperate, Summer Hayes couldn't forgive her family, couldn't forgive herself either. Hannah Shaw carried Shinshin hurrying back to the car. Discovered the heater was turned up very high. I was already leaning against the backseat asleep. She made a silent gesture to Shinshin. The little girl immediately covered her mouth wisely. The sound of opening the car door still woke me. I rubbed my eyes, my voice still carrying drowsy traces. "So, did something happen? Give me Shinshin to hold." Nothing happened. Hannah Shaw almost hated herself for being nosy. If she'd realized earlier the person by the water was Summer Hayes, she wouldn't have paid attention for even a second. Saw wrong. They were fishing. Shinshin dependently burrowed into my arms. Looked up sweetly. "Daddy, thank you for playing with me today." I laughed. Kissed her rosy cheek. "You're welcome. Did you thank your aunt?" Shinshin huffed, then immediately became obedient. "Auntie wanted to go out even more than me." "Daddy, when you go back, will it be? After going back, will it be several days before you can come out again?" What if Shinshin misses you? No. This time back. It's so that Shinshin can see Daddy every day. 3 years ago I nearly died in the water. It was Hannah Shaw who, risking her own life, saved me. My condition had reached the critical edge. If it weren't for Hannah Shaw, I definitely couldn't have survived until now. 3 long years of care. I finally recovered enough to be able to have surgery. Several southern hospitals all said it was too risky. Taking me back to Seattle was truly a last resort. Hannah Shaw worked so hard to fake the scene of my death. Just now when meeting Summer Hayes, her back had already broken out in cold sweat. Such lingering ghosts. Shinshin was still small. My body was even so weak I couldn't hold her for long. Occasionally I had to go to the hospital for chemotherapy. One separation was several months. That's why Shinshin was so worried. After playing with her this time, it would be long before seeing me again. This was also why I didn't agree to conservative treatment. Shinshin spent more time with Hannah Shaw, but was unexpectedly very attached to me. Really couldn't bear to see her little face show longing yet suppression. When Shinshin was little she'd often cry calling for Daddy. But when she grew older she understood. Daddy is sick. So he can't hold me long, can't play with me. Outside, she became more sensible and obedient. Never relied on me to burden me more. Having such a daughter was tiring but fortunate. Back then I had no will to live. I was very moved. Hannah Shaw tried her hardest to save me. But I could never find the will to live. Cancer like a gold-swallowing beast. Its huge greedy mouth devouring Hannah Shaw's assets. I tried to die many times. Didn't want to burden anyone anymore. Until Hannah Shaw brought home a child just learning to talk. She was so small. Cheeks like soft, tender flower petals. Even her crying was soft. Little hand gripping my finger tight. I looked at Hannah Shaw in confusion. One big, one small, 2 faces. Both showing the same puzzled expression. Hannah Shaw took a deep breath. This is my sister's child. Her husband was a serviceman. Died for the country, and she followed in grief. She's only a year and a half old. Let's raise her together, okay? Only then did I learn. Hannah Shaw's savings as a doctor had been depleted through my repeated severe illnesses. Now all my treatment costs were from Shinshin's pension and inheritance her parents left. I held the child. This child who'd lost both father and mother was like me in my youth. Pension and inheritance her parents left. I held the child. This child who'd lost both father and mother was like me in my youth. Tears fell. From that day I never thought of suicide again. In my life, there was another person as important as Hannah Shaw. Another small child who needed me to raise. That heavy responsibility became the anchor keeping me alive. I loved Shinshin. And Shinshin loved me. No matter how cold it was outside. Inside the car was like a warm harbor. Shinshin, having received Daddy's promise, fell contentedly asleep. I removed her scarf. My voice flat. The person by the lake was Summer Hayes, wasn't it? Hannah Shaw's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. She unconsciously wanted to deny it, but could only remain silent for a long time. And I already had my answer in that silence. I smiled. My brows and eyes gentle as willow leaves spreading. Hannah, what are you afraid of? Hannah Shaw looked straight ahead. Said sullenly, I'm not. I kept that intimate yet resolute tone. I won't love that person anymore. Hannah, I won't be pathetic over and over again. Hannah Shaw only hated her clumsy tongue. I didn't mean that. But from the rearview mirror she saw me in the backseat. The corners of my mouth carried a faint smile, showing no sadness or forced pretense. My eyes sparkled. Hannah, you're really too silly. Being called silly out of nowhere. Hannah Shaw actually felt somewhat sweet. She couldn't help but admit. She really had been worried. Whether I'd fall in love with Summer Hayes again. And afraid I'd be hurt once more. That scene from 3 years ago had also become her psychological shadow. Seeing me unconscious in the lake, Hannah Shaw's mind had never been so clear. Without my permission, she directly handled my cremation procedures. Took me south. Now it was like a nightmare's sequel. Seeing Summer Hayes again, she unconsciously clenched her fists. If she weren't holding the child, She'd definitely beat Summer Hayes up. After saying that, I fell silent. I lowered my eyes, with a faint smile, stroking my sleeping daughter's rosy cheeks. In 3 years Hannah Shaw had never confessed her feelings. She'd loved me for such a long time. But because of clumsiness and being beaten by Summer Hayes, she'd missed chances many times. Through so many moments leaning on each other, Hannah Shaw only thought, being able to protect me well was enough. Me being happy and joyful was enough. Whether I loved her or not, just being able to stay beside Shinshin and me, for Hannah Shaw, was already the greatest fortune. Right now, from my voice carrying a hint of indulgence, she understood something. Her heart beat wildly beyond control, as if sensing what was about to happen. She flustered, stopped the car, then. She flustered, stopped the car, then. Opened the back door, reached out to take the sleeping Shinshin. But I raised my hand to stop what she was about to say. Because of my frailty, I was now pale as snow. Dark eyes, forcing a smile. Let's talk about it later. I wasn't made of wood or iron. Over 3 years, Hannah Shaw's meticulous care had warmed my heart that Summer Hayes had frozen through. It's just that while my cancer wasn't cured yet, how could I dare promise anything? But that didn't mean I'd keep leaving her hanging like this. After Hannah Shaw received good news at the consultation, I decided something. As long as I could survive the operating room, I wanted to try entrusting my scarred self completely to Hannah Shaw. A miraculous love was born this way. I looked at Shinshin drowsy with sleep, gently patted her back. Whether the company was large or small, year-end busy season was always insanely hectic. Stephen Su, though just a receptionist, these past few days, the guests received had doubled from before. He'd been on the job for half a month now. Aaron Shia's predictions hadn't come true, except for standing with aching feet. Compared to his previous work, this was much more leisurely. The receptionist working shifts with Stephen Su wasn't much older either. After hearing his confused thoughts before taking the job, burst out laughing. You're dreaming. Do you know how many people are lined up to get in here? Stephen Su laughed awkwardly. He realized he'd been ridiculous. Summer Hayes always walked hurriedly past reception, all day not glancing this way once. The most unusual thing was calling, asking them to bring delivery up. He'd been curious too. What a CEO of this level 8. But each time Summer Hayes's delivery was very small portions. And sometimes, she wouldn't eat a bite all day. Summer Hayes walked past reception, saw 2 young men huddled together whispering. She unexpectedly showed a rare hint of a smile, her gaze softening. Stephen Su quickly shut his mouth, stood up and bowed. Good morning, Ms. Hayes. After saying that, he almost slapped himself. He'd gotten used to saying that with Aaron Shea. Accidentally blurted it out. Summer Hayes paid little attention. Nodded at him. Settling in okay? Stephen Su answered cheerfully, everything's great. Summer Hayes smiled at this response. Walked quickly away. Stephen Su propped his chin, couldn't help sighing. So beautiful, so gentle. Just that Ms. Hayes is really too thin. Is she on a diet? The senior squinted at him with a smile. Ms. Hayes is so beautiful, so gentle. Just that Ms. Hayes is really too thin. Is she on a diet? The senior squinted at him with a smile. Ms. Hayes doesn't like eating much. But watch your attitude. This made Stephen Su jump. He nodded seriously. Got it. That moment just now, Summer Hayes thought of me joking around with Ryan Hayes. Like back in college, the two of us like little animals huddled together, whispering. That scene was what Summer Hayes would spend her whole life wanting to return to. But she couldn't, and could never do it. In this life there's no medicine for regret. Today she had to go to the hospital to negotiate cooperation. She wore a neat suit. Her cold neck and arms broke out in a fine layer of goosebumps. The car heater wasn't on. Because at this moment Summer Hayes remembered how I used to also be cruelly rejected by her in this way. Left outside the door, in thin clothes standing in Seattle's winter. She punished herself this way. The vice director came out early to greet her. Before, when Summer Hayes still worked for the Hayes Company, they'd already conducted one medical equipment exchange, but his face was clearly somewhat awkward. Summer. It's not that we don't want to cooperate with you. This new drug research. Your father on the other side. Did the director say anything? Summer Hayes's shoulders still had some from the heater. Melted wetness. She nodded. It's fine. Uncle, I'll wait here. Ask if the director wants to meet me? The vice director sighed. Ah, look at you. You're a good kid. Why quarrel with your family to this extent? He looked at Summer Hayes with pity. Still softened. Called the director's office. Then turned to Summer Hayes. You wait here. The director says he's busy right now. Summer Hayes smiled. Okay. She stood straight outside the office. No one knew. Her shoes had been soaked by street snow. But she still stood straight as a pine. The vice director was also very busy. After meeting this person and instructing her, turned back to his workplace. Until a small shadow bumped into her legs. Summer Hayes looked down. Saw a little head wearing a strawberry clip. The little girl bumped dazed, touched her forehead but didn't cry. Looked up at her. Your Aunt Hannah's. Hannah Shaw used to be a doctor at this hospital. Summer Hayes knew this. But, why did she bring the child to this place? Where was Hannah Shaw? Countless questions swirled in her mind. The urgent matter was getting the little girl back quickly. Summer Hayes crouched down to look at the little girl. The little girl looked back at Summer Hayes with wary eyes. Raised her hand. She stepped back, wrinkling her nose. You're that. Raised her hand. She stepped back, wrinkling her nose. You're the one. The mean lady Auntie talked about. Children speak without filter. Summer Hayes didn't take offense. She was just worried the child was lost. Looking at the small name tag on her chest. Why are you here alone? Your name is Shinshin? Shinshin said loudly. Yes, I'm Shinshin. My daddy's name is Ethan. Her heart felt struck by a sledgehammer, suddenly robbing her of breath. Summer Hayes grabbed Shinshin's little arm. Urgently, what's your daddy's name? Shinshin's eyes widened, looking at her a bit scared. Ethan, you're hurting me. Her vision flashed white. Summer Hayes was furiously shoved away by Hannah Shaw. Let go of her. She picked up Shinshin, glared angrily at the person on the floor. Summer Hayes, what do you want? Summer Hayes didn't care how disheveled she looked. She stood up as if possessed, taking a step forward, but looking fearfully at Shinshin. Tell me, what's her father's name? Shinshin was only 4.5. Frightened, she cried loudly. Clutched Hannah Shaw's neck tightly. Turned her head, not wanting to look at her. Seeing Summer Hayes still advancing. Hannah Shaw slapped her across the face. She yelled at Summer Hayes as she fell. Get lost. Summer Hayes, what are you pretending to care for? You're the one who killed Ethan. Now you're the one going crazy. If you're sick, go get treated. From now on, every time I see you, I'll hit you. Summer Hayes wiped the blood from her mouth. Watched Hannah Shaw gently comfort Shinshin while quickly walking away. She suddenly said, I remember. The radiation department is nearby. Hannah Shaw, who in your family is sick? The retreating figure paused slightly. Hannah Shaw said coldly, what business is it of yours? An unbelievable thought appeared in Summer Hayes's mind. She steadied herself just as the vice director pushed open the door. Face surprised. Summer, what happened? Summer Hayes wiped the blood from her mouth. I'm fine, uncle. Her expression was utterly calm. Her hand hanging at her side trembled uncontrollably. Moving. The vice director felt somewhat ashamed. Ah, Summer, come back another time. Just got word from security. Says the director left. Summer Hayes's voice was low. It's okay, uncle. Can I ask you for another favor? The vice director looked at her with some concern. Whatever I can help with, I'll try to help you. In Summer Hayes's downcast eyes, an unusual light flickered. The corners of her mouth curved into a smile. Cold, like furious to the extreme or happy to tears. Please help me find someone, 28 or 9 years old. Probably admitted not long ago. Male, I have a reference name. Though it might not be this name. Uncle, anyone who meets the criteria, 28 or 9, recently admitted. Male, I have a reference name. Though it might not be this name. Uncle, anyone who qualifies. Please let me see their medical records. His name is Ethan Sinclair. Hannah Shaw felt frustrated, but still kept comforting Shinshin. Until the child's sobbing stopped. Then seriously pinched her cheek. From now on, absolutely no running off. Understand? What if you get kidnapped? I wanted to buy candy for Daddy. The doctor just prescribed lots of bitter medicine again. Shinshin's lips trembled, about to cry again. I'm sorry, Auntie. Please don't be mad at me, okay? This melted Hannah Shaw's heart. She held Shinshin close. Stroked her head. Not mad. I was just scared Shinshin would disappear. I'd be so sad. Shinshin said sweetly, I know now. I'll never run off again. Hannah Shaw wiped Shinshin's tears. Sighed softly. She knew Summer Hayes had started to suspect. Someone like her, once discovering something wrong, would bite down like a shark on meat. No matter what, had to get it in her mouth. Especially matters concerning me. This past half-month, she'd heard plenty about Summer Hayes. Rumors were, after all, rumors. Exaggerated to the point. Hannah Shaw was shocked to her core. Hiding me would be very difficult. The doctor removed his mask. Came out of the consultation room and told Hannah Shaw. The patient's condition isn't bad now. Considering his cancer cells have been in his body for years. The hospital recommends surgery soon. Looking at the schedule, must be done by next week at the latest. What does the family think? On one hand, being discovered by Summer Hayes. On the other, my health recovery. Almost without thinking, Hannah Shaw chose the latter. Decisively said, we also think sooner is better. Doctor, please arrange it. The doctor nodded too. All right, go complete the admission procedures. Shinshin had already run into the hospital room to hug me. The two tacitly agreed not to mention almost getting lost. This matter. She pulled colorful candies from her pocket. Stuffed them in my hand, eyes bright. Daddy, eat these and the medicine won't taste bitter. I kissed her cheek. Held the little girl in my arms. Whispered, thank you, my sweet Shinshin. Daddy's having surgery soon. We might not see each other for a while. Shinshin snuggled against me with a big smile. It's okay. Daddy, I'm not scared. Auntie said, after this surgery, Daddy can stay with me forever. Don't be scared either, okay, Daddy? Shinshin and Auntie will wait for you. Her words softened a piece of my heart. I stroked her soft hair. Smiled. I'll listen to Shinshin. I realized I truly owed them both. So much, so very much. Before, I'd been determined to die. I owed them both so much, so very much. Before, I'd been determined to die. Turned a blind eye to Hannah Shaw's warm affection. Until Shinshin appeared beside me. Only then did I pull my gaze. Out from the abyss of death. Falling into the human world. I saw a ray of light that belonged to me. Whether it was Shinshin, thoughtful and wise. Or silent, but doing everything perfectly, Hannah Shaw. Both were my rare and precious treasures. Thinking again of Summer Hayes, only peace remained in my heart. How could I not understand? My own best friend? I knew very clearly. Ryan Hayes wouldn't blame me like the Hayes family did. With such pain and hatred. But that heart-wrenching guilt. Still could never fully heal. If death alone could forgive my sins. Then I'd already been cleansed. Like that day in the bone-chilling river water. When Hannah Shaw pulled me out. Her worried tears. All fell into my frozen heart. My will to live was so fragile. Yet Hannah Shaw shouted, even if you don't want to live, you must live. Your life isn't just yours now. It's also mine, Hannah Shaw's. You're not allowed to die. Now half my soul belonged to Hannah Shaw. I thought to myself, even if Summer Hayes appeared before me now, telling me to pay with my life for Ryan Hayes, I wouldn't choose death anymore. My surgery was scheduled for this weekend. Hannah Shaw took Shinshin to stay temporarily at her cousin's house. The little girl clenched her fists bravely. Daddy, I'll wait for you to come home. I kept kissing her cheek. Okay, Shinshin, after surgery Daddy will take you to the amusement park. Shinshin said happily, Auntie has to come too. I waved, no problem. Watching Hannah Shaw put Shinshin in the car. Fastening her seatbelt. Reminding her, drive safely. I wasn't actually as calm as I appeared. Inside I was unavoidably tense. 3 years ago I absolutely never imagined I'd now have hope for living. I still had Shinshin, still had Hannah Shaw. Nothing could defeat me. Thinking this way, my mood calmed. My hospital room was in a very good location. Looking out the window, facing snow-covered mountains and forests. The winter afternoon sun carried soft warmth. I pulled a chair to sit by the window. A steady knock came at the door. I checked the time. The doctor's rounds. I raised my voice. "Come in." Smiling as I turned, my expression froze. It was Summer Hayes. 3 years had made her look more mature. Her figure in the windbreaker much thinner. Her features even more refined and cold. Dark brows drooping to shadow her eyes. But couldn't hide that fervent gaze. Summer Hayes's voice trembled. Emotions so overwhelming she nearly lost her voice. "Ethan, I found you." She took a step forward. The large bouquet in her hands fell to the floor. 3 steps became 2 as she rushed forward. Bent down and held me tight in the chair. "I found you, Ethan." I was only surprised for a moment, then calm. I knew being discovered by Summer Hayes was inevitable. So I didn't try to struggle. Her arms squeezed my shoulders tight. I felt warm liquid dripping from my collar, soaking a patch of neck skin. I said flatly, "It's me. Summer Hayes, long time no see." Summer Hayes trembled with crying. Her breathing rapid, chaotic. Words broken. "Why? Why try to die? Why didn't you tell me you were sick? Why did you lie to me?" A woman in her 30s. Crying like a deceived child. She held me frantically, repeating my name over and over, as if mistaking this for a phantom in a dream. I felt somewhat uncomfortable. Frowned slightly. "Summer Hayes, if you don't let go, you're going to squeeze me to death." Summer Hayes stepped back. Her legs went weak, sinking to the floor. Looking up at me in the chair, she cried so messily, the corners of her brows, eyes, and nose all red. Her forehead soaked, unclear if sweat or blood. Her hands still trembling, grasping my cold, bony knuckles, trying to suppress her sobs. But tears still kept flowing. I'd only seen Summer Hayes lose composure like this once. It was when Ryan Hayes passed away. She pulled at my retreating hand again, voice still shaking. "Don't go. Ethan Sinclair, please don't go." I didn't hesitate, yanking my hand away again. Staring at Summer Hayes. "I'm not planning to leave. More to the point, you should go." Summer Hayes's lips were deathly pale. She seemed to understand my undisguised rejection, slowly remembering what she herself had done before. The corners of my mouth held a hint of a smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. My voice was very soft. "Forgot to ask. Summer Hayes, how's your relationship going? Do you have children yet? Forgot to tell you. I'm already married to Hannah Shaw. Our daughter's name is Shinshin. I'm sure you've met her." This sentence struck like a sledgehammer into Summer Hayes's head. A whoosh rang in her ears. The sound of electric current piercing her eardrums. As if in that moment she couldn't hear anything. This left her utterly panicked. Lips trembling but unable to say a word. Completely in disarray. I watched her expression suddenly change. Found it somewhat amusing. Completely in disarray. I watched her expression suddenly change. Found it somewhat amusing. So this was what I'd been like when I loved Summer Hayes. Being mocked, being seen through, so perfectly normal. Summer Hayes stood up dazed, nodding. Saying incoherently, "Met her. She's very pretty, Ethan." She wanted to say she'd help with surgery costs. I, as if predicting, cut her off. I whispered. I struggled so hard to find the courage to embrace the will to live for this surgery. "Summer Hayes, don't force me to die again." The words like sharp blades, swift enough to slice through flesh, only then bleeding to the bone. Painful enough that heart and lungs couldn't function. Clutching her chest, gasping to get through it. Summer Hayes couldn't stand steady. Leaned against the bed, face pale as porcelain. She knew I could do it, so she dared not say another word. Flustered, she nodded, turned and left the room. Her retreating figure even slightly unsteady. I watched her leave, speechless for a long time. I discovered in my heart, I truly couldn't find deep hatred. Like a drop of water diluted by the vast sea. The love and hatred from before had all been swallowed by Hannah Shaw's vast, ocean-like care and companionship. Seeing Summer Hayes in that moment, I felt nothing beyond pressure. Perhaps this was for the best. I thought. You don't interfere with me. I don't interfere with you. We were originally just two parallel strings, connected by Ryan. Now he was no longer in this world. We should return to our original positions. The nurse helped clean up the flowers on the floor. When Hannah Shaw returned, she still keenly sensed someone had come. She sniffed, displeased. The scent is too strong. I didn't plan to hide it from her. Just flower fragrance. She rushed over alert as a guard dog. Circled me twice checking. Summer haze came? I stood up with a bright smile. Well, she searched my body for injuries. I'm fine. Hannah Shaw hugged my waist. Head pressed firmly against my neck. Sighed with relief. You scared me to death. I thought she'd take you away. Thank God you're okay. Let's go back south after surgery, okay? I answered without hesitation. Okay. I prefer warm weather year-round too. Seattle winters are really too cold. Even sunlight is precious and rare. I laughed. Then you'll have to take responsibility for keeping me warm. She promised. Just now Hannah Shaw had only acted on impulse. So she hugged me. Now didn't want to let go. She'd truly always been worried. Worried that after seeing Summer Haze, my love, would make me change my mind. I tilted my face. Saw Hannah Shaw's ears were completely red. Couldn't help laughing. How long are you holding on for? Hannah Shaw said softly. Shinshin's not here. Just a bit longer. Ethan, it's so cold outside. I'd been in the sun all afternoon. My body full of gentle warmth. We huddled under the blanket for an afternoon nap. Golden light fell on Hannah Shaw's long hair. Dust floating in the sunlight like tiny particles. Drifting over the cheeks and around us as we slept. Like a peaceful, quiet boundary. We held each other sleeping for so long. Lunchboxes were always left at the hospital room door. Hannah Shaw knocked them over each time she went in and out. I told her she was wasting food. She said stubbornly, gave it to the cats and dogs. These 3 years had honed her cooking skills wonderfully. Whether supplementary food for children, or bland meals for patients, Hannah Shaw arranged everything thoughtfully. She rented a small room near the hospital. With kitchen privileges, simple ingredients, she regularly made into extremely delicious flavors. We both knew those elaborate lunchboxes were brought by Summer Haze, and that Hannah Shaw poured out all the soup and vegetables. We both understood clearly. Just that neither mentioned this mood-killing, spoiling matter. Hannah Shaw thought to herself. Summer Haze, don't dream I'll let what she brings pass my lips. One day before surgery, Hannah Shaw went out to buy vegetables. I gave her a list. Lately I'd been reading books. The doctor said to reduce screen time. So Hannah Shaw had a new daily task. Going to bookstores to select books I wanted. Philosophy, psychology related. Also many popular leisure books. Hannah Shaw sometimes called me childish, but willingly ran several kilometers away to buy them for me, hoping I wouldn't get bored. Hannah Shaw looked once, sighed. There's too much on today's list. Don't know how long the shopping will take. You're being discharged in 2 days. Still have to move the books back home. I curled my lips. I'll donate them to the hospital library. Hurry up and buy them for me. Hannah Shaw said helplessly. Okay, jangled her car keys and left. She'd barely been gone long when Summer Haze came knocking. I knew in advance she'd come. Deliberately sent Hannah Shaw away. Not that there was anything she couldn't hear, or shouldn't know. Just that I knew Hannah Shaw's personality too well. Easily jealous, easily overthinking. I couldn't bear Hannah Shaw's wild speculations. Holding anger in her heart. The karma I'd created, I'd resolve myself. Compared to last time's dishevelment, Summer Haze this time appeared much more composed. Her hands still holding. Compared to last time's dishevelment, Summer Haze this time appeared much more composed. Her hands still carrying those lunchboxes. Just as we'd expected, the person leaving things at the door could only be her. I said gently, don't leave them anymore. It'll make her overthink. Last time I'd used the element of surprise to catch her off guard. Coming to her senses, Summer Haze realized, how could I in 3 years have raised a child that big? Especially with this illness. She lowered her head, opened the lunchbox, took out a bowl of rib soup, pushed it onto my table. This is your favorite. I gently shook my head. No need, Ms. Hayes. I laughed. You made this, didn't you? Summer Hayes didn't expect me to guess. Became slightly flustered. Said awkwardly, yes. Will you try it? I expressionlessly poured it on the floor. Soup splashed onto Summer Hayes's pant leg. Her expression immediately turned ashen. I said flatly, the person who liked soup was Ryan. Not me. Consider this bowl my offering to him. Ms. Hayes, have you forgotten? The Hayes family never allowed me to make offerings to Ryan. So making offerings here is only natural. Summer Hayes nodded. You're right. She staggered to her feet. I'm sorry, Ethan. She looked for a mop. Not finding one, she removed her expensive coat, spread it over the floor, wiped that spot clean, turned and left. I watched her retreating figure and sighed softly. I didn't hate Summer Hayes, but knew Hannah Shaw was someone who lacked security. If I didn't stop Summer Hayes's behavior, it would be too unfair to Hannah Shaw. So when Hannah Shaw returned, surprised to find no one had left soup at the door, she immediately huffed. Only persistent for a few days? I flipped through the books she'd brought back, smiled without speaking. Lunch was very bland, but the portions were sufficient. Because starting tonight, I had to fast from food and water for several hours. To facilitate tomorrow's surgery, I was stuffed full. Lay on the bed digesting for a while. Hannah Shaw lay down too. What? I didn't even want to turn my head. Just stared at the ceiling. You're getting more and more comfortable lying in my bed. Hannah Shaw broke character within a second. Face immediately flushed. What's wrong with lying down a bit? Since she'd discovered I also had feelings for her, her behavior had become noticeably freer. Now being called out, she sat up embarrassed. My voice was very gentle. Hannah, after my surgery succeeds, I'll tell you a secret. Hannah Shaw nodded happily. Okay. Hannah Shaw's cousin still took the day of my surgery off to bring Shinshin to the hospital. He was very young, but got along great with Shinshin. In less than a week, Shinshin was calling him sweetly, Stephen. I smiled, eyes crinkling, taking Shinshin from his hands. Thanks for the trouble, Stephen. If it weren't for you, really wouldn't know how to arrange things for Shinshin. At this moment, Stephen's sus mind was already in complete turmoil. Though illness had made me much thinner over the years, my features were still distinct, identical to that man in the precious photo. On Summer Hayes's desk, he was full of doubt, staring at me in a daze. I frowned, confused. What's wrong, Stephen? Stephen Su shook his head frantically. No, nothing. He knew. Now wasn't the time to investigate the truth. I was about to have surgery. Saying more would be useless. His mind was in chaos, watching the doctor wheel me away for pre-op tests. He bowed his head and texted Aaron Xie. Mr. Xie, before you said the person young CEO Hayes loved had died. Is that true? Aaron Xie quickly replied. Why are you remembering this? It's true. During work I heard quite a bit of news. CEO Hayes's lover apparently committed suicide. After that, CEO Hayes regularly attended psychological counseling. Even now her mental state isn't very good. I heard from colleagues she's always going to the psychology clinic for medication. Stephen Su, for unspeakable reasons, always felt somewhat sad. He watched my figure recede. Holding Shinshin by his side, he sighed. Said softly, Shinshin, do you know where your mommy went? Shinshin tilted her head thinking for a long time. Mommy. Isn't Auntie my mommy? Stephen Su was a distant cousin of the Shaw family. He truly didn't know the relationship between Hannah Shaw and me. And Shinshin. How the three were related. Thinking it over, his nearsighted eyes brimmed with tears. Poor little Shinshin. Uncle will take you downstairs to buy candy, okay? Shinshin pouted. Why is Shinshin poor? Let's go buy candy for Daddy. Daddy said I have cavities, I can't eat candy. Such a sensible child without a mother by her side. And judging by CEO Hayes's appearance, 3 years ago there must have been a huge misunderstanding. Stephen Su's imagination made him even sadder. He told Hannah Shaw he was taking Shinshin downstairs and leaving the hospital. Mr. Xie, do you have CEO Hayes's phone number? Stephen Su didn't know what conflicts existed between Summer Hayes and me in the past, but he believed innately only communication and exchange could solve problems. From every angle, it wasn't hard to see. Summer Hayes loved me. Stephen Sue didn't want our love to be severed. Besides, Summer Hayes was a very good boss. He wanted to help them. Whatever the outcome, at least leave no regrets. A very good boss. He wanted to help them. Whatever the outcome, at least leave no regrets. Summer Hayes had learned from the vice director early on. That today was my surgery. She stood at the far end of the hospital corridor watching from afar. Watching Hannah Shaw hold my hand. Saying something softly. Last night she'd had a terrible dream. Woke at the break of dawn. Outside the window, cold as if going through an ice age. In the dozens of degrees below zero winter, she opened the window. Let the falling snow cover her head and body. Like punishing herself. Summer Hayes was very jealous of Hannah Shaw. She could stand openly beside me. Accompany me through so many difficulties. Raise with me a child as lovely as snow. But the dream she'd longed for so deeply in her youth could absolutely never be realized now. In the dream, those soft lips she'd kissed countless times said that cold and resolute line, "Summer Hayes, do you want to kill me a second time? Come one step closer. And I won't have this surgery. Just as you wish. I'll die before you again." Summer Hayes looked terrible. Each time waking from nightmares she was drenched in cold sweat. Limbs numb. Joanna told her to rigidly face panic symptoms. Clearly wasn't the ideal solution. So she grabbed the medicine at hand. Trembling, poured out a large handful from the narrow bottle neck. Stuffed them in her mouth. Teeth grinding noisily. So bitter. The operating room lights came on. Hannah Shaw stood in the safety corridor. Met Summer Hayes. She looked at Summer Hayes with complicated eyes. Summer Hayes leaned against the door, quietly. Asked, "Not nervous?" Hannah Shaw answered the wrong question. "Ethan promised me. He'll be fine." How could she not be nervous? But she couldn't show it. In this household, the patient, still young, only Hannah Shaw remained, had to always stand as the pillar. If she also showed fearful emotions, who would comfort Shinshin and me? A month ago they were still opposing rivals. Now they shared the same feelings. Two people, each on one side. Silent in the freezing winter, breathing cold air. Hannah Shaw looked at Summer Hayes. "Not married yet?" Summer Hayes laughed once. "Not getting married. Don't want to hurt anyone else." Hannah Shaw said coldly, "Good that you know. You're running a fever." Summer Hayes only replied flatly, "Thanks for your concern." Hannah Shaw suddenly said, "I don't hope you die. If you died, it would be very unfair to me. You occupy too much weight in Ethan's life. This is something I can't help but admit. If you died, he'd remember you his whole life. He would in his heart. He would in his heart. Build you a tomb. The other half left for Shinshin. Then the space I could occupy would be too small. I'm not willing to accept that. These past 3 years, the one by his side was me. The one who sacrificed everything for him was also me. Summer Hayes, if you're still human, still have some shame toward him. Please don't disturb him anymore. You should live well. Just remain the detestable villain in his heart. Only then can he forget you completely." The stairwell door brought strong winds. Hannah Shaw's words were very slow. Summer Hayes listened silently. After a very long time, she nodded with difficulty. "Okay." Hannah Shaw was right. Ryan Hayes's death wasn't my fault to begin with. She'd used this excuse to torture me for 5 long years. It was because of her that I came close to death multiple times. Summer Hayes felt her throat dry and hoarse, unable to make any sound. She breathed out burning hot air. Hazily opened her mouth as if wanting to say more. Hannah Shaw beside her didn't even look at her. Pulled open the door and left. The phone in her pocket kept sending notifications. Summer Hayes guessed it was Joanna calling. She was a dedicated, responsible doctor. Perhaps with excellent professional knowledge. But still couldn't unlock the heavy shackles pressing on Summer Hayes's heart. Summer Hayes understood her psychological illness well. Treating it was actually very easy. Just forget me. The surgery had already passed an hour and a half. Though the doctor had already prepared us mentally for the extended time. But still, Hannah Shaw's heart was restless with worry. The operating room door only opened for a moment. Then closed again. Is the patient's family here? Is the patient's family here? Hannah Shaw immediately stood up, looked anxiously at the nurse. Signed the critical condition notice. The nurse pointed to that white paper. Hannah Shaw was immediately terrified. She, as a doctor, had countless times notified patients' families to sign this agreement. But when it was her turn to sign, her hands shook so badly she could barely hold the pen. Even knowing this didn't mean I had any problems. The nurse was clearly very rushed. Hannah Shaw bit her teeth, forcing herself to stay calm. Signed her name on the paper. She immediately turned back to the operating room. Her eyes red-rimmed, completely unable to sit still. Stood up anxiously pacing back and forth. From the stairwell came Stephen Su's panicked shout. "Ma'am." His voice carried crying. Holding Shinshin, who was clearly unconscious. Ran over. "Ma'am." Shinshin suddenly passed out. Hannah Shaw's mind went blank. She looked at the disaster-struck Stephen Su kneeling before her, but collapsed. Hannah Shaw's mind went blank. She looked at the disaster-struck Stephen Su kneeling before her, but with a flushed face. Unconscious. Shinshin kept thinking, I must stay calm. Summer Hayes seemed to have never left the vicinity. She heard Stephen Sus crying. Quickly crouched to look at Shinshin's flushed face. Stephen, don't shout. This is a hospital. Come, follow me for emergency treatment. Hannah Shaw first removed Shinshin's clothes. Saw a large red rash on her stomach. Suddenly reacted. Stephen, did you just give Shinshin something to eat? Hannah Shaw's sister had allergies. Shinshin had never shown any allergic reactions before. So, Hannah Shaw and I hadn't paid much attention to this. Knowing the allergen source would make things much easier. Stephen Su wiped his tears. Quickly remembered just taking her downstairs. She wouldn't eat candy, so I bought her bread. It had peanut butter in it. Peanuts were a major allergen. Immediately decisive, Summer Hayes quickly picked up Shinshin. Hannah Shaw still wanted to take her. She looked coldly once. Ethan, still needs someone watching on this side. I can't harm his child. Let me go. Hannah Shaw knew she was right. Right now Shinshin absolutely couldn't be delayed. And I had just signed the critical notice on this side. She bit her teeth hard. Watched Stephen Su and Summer Hayes carry the child away like the wind. She helplessly cried out, bowed her head sobbing. Summer Hayes's condition hadn't been good since arriving at the hospital. She felt the heat leaving her body rapidly. The body in her arms light and soft. This was Ethan's child, his truly precious child. So, when running frantically down the stairs and falling, she instinctively held the child tight in her arms. Used her arms and back to shield the child from the hard wall. The sharp stair corners. Stephen Su was terrified, quickly ran down to help her up. Summer Hayes struggled to stand. Quickly checked Shinshin's condition. Ms. Hayes, let me carry her. Shinshin's okay. Sharp pain from her ankle shot through. She didn't dare stop for a moment, biting through the pain and running to emergency. The doctor, learning the allergen source, quickly determined Shinshin's condition. Injected adrenaline and loratadine. After treatment, those terrifying red patches finally receded. Stephen Su blamed herself endlessly. She really liked Shinshin. Never thought the child would have problems under her care. So ashamed she didn't know what to do. Summer Hayes finally breathed a sigh of relief. Her ankle still transmitted violent pain. Any slight movement, her forehead would break out in cold sweat. She let Stephen Su hold Shinshin. The high fever brought burning heat. Gradually eroding her will. Gradually eroding her will. The sound of crying still came from beside her. Summer Hayes whispered, don't cry anymore, Stephen. It's not your fault. Stephen Su choked up, helped wipe the sweat from Shinshin's face. Still felt sad. If I hadn't bought that bread for her. Summer Hayes comforted her. No one knew Shinshin was allergic to peanuts. Discovering it now in the hospital. Is already fortune in misfortune. From now on we'll all avoid this type of food. What she said made sense. Stephen Su could only nod. Only then did she notice. Summer Hayes's fever had flushed her cheekbones pink. Her lips dry and cracked, peeling. Looking very exhausted. She was startled. Ms. Hayes, are you okay? Summer Hayes frowned. She was in too much pain to think normally. Said quietly, "I'm fine. I'm just thirsty. Could you pour me some water?" Stephen Su reached for the cup on the bedside table. Placed it in her hands. After drinking, Summer Hayes seemed more alert. Sat up straight. After hesitating a long time, Stephen Su said softly, "Ms. Hayes, you and Ethan Sinclair." Summer Hayes's expression showed some confusion. After a long pause she said, "He was my former lover." Stephen Su felt somewhat sad. In her eyes, Summer Hayes was really such a good person. She didn't understand why. "I would even use news of my death to deceive her." 3 years' time. Aaron Xie had told her on the phone. Summer Hayes had even because of this regularly seen a psychologist. She must really care about Ethan Sinclair. Stephen Su said carefully, "Young CEO Hayes, is there some misunderstanding between you and Ethan Sinclair? If it's just a misunderstanding, communication can resolve it. You really love him, don't you?" Summer Hayes murmured, "Yes, perhaps because of the high fever. Or because every limb and bone transmitted pain." Summer Hayes suddenly had a desire to confide. Stephen Su before her, with clear eyes, carrying worship she herself didn't realize. Looking at her admiringly, reminded her of me from years ago. Summer Hayes whispered, "I love him so much." Whether it was 8 years ago, 3 years ago, or now. Stephen Su awkwardly looked at her, showing that vulnerable face. Not knowing what to do, she really didn't hope to witness Summer Hayes so negative and sorrowful. She hesitated. "What I'm about to say might be overstepping. Young CEO Hayes, have you thought about explaining things thoroughly to Ethan Sinclair? Is there any possibility Shinshin is your child?" Summer Hayes smiled bitterly and shook her head. "She's not. If only she were." Stephen Su was still too young. She didn't know that sigh represented how much pain and regret for her whole life. Stephen Su was still too young. She didn't know that sigh represented how much pain and regret for her whole life. Summer Hayes could never forgive herself for what she'd done. The doctor preliminarily determined Summer Hayes's injury, fracture. Glanced at her face. Still running a fever? The doctor reached to feel her forehead. Summer Hayes politely raised her hand to block him. She knew her high fever was from abusing medication at dawn, and standing before the window in the wind. She didn't care. Nodded curtly. "I'll go get it casted. But right now there's something more important." Stephen Su was still watching over Shinshin. Summer Hayes insisted on returning to the operating room. But they insisted she go to orthopedics first. The injury was close to Summer Hayes's guess. She stood up, gently moving her ankle. The sensation already somewhat numb. So she decided to leave the orthopedic clinic. The red light at the operating room door was still on. Summer Hayes hurriedly asked the nurse, "Not finished yet?" The nurse still had an impression of her. Shook her head. "Already moved to the monitoring room. This is the second surgery now." Summer Hayes suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time felt a wave of dizziness. Suddenly stepped hard on her injured ankle. Never been more disheveled than this moment. But she, for how many days? The only time, laughed from the bottom of her heart. Stephen Su's words still echoed in her ears. Summer Hayes knew very clearly. This was just well-meaning comfort from an outsider. But couldn't help imagining, if I survived, would she have a chance to hear forgiveness from my own lips? Perhaps in Summer Hayes's heart there remained a bit of hope she herself dared not admit. She wanted to reconcile with me. We'd once been so in love. The whole school knew about this couple. Even teachers magnanimously blessed us. Back then I was the happiest boy in the world. Still hoped she could let me be happy. Summer Hayes rubbed her face with her hands, knowing clearly it was all futile fantasy. But just this fantasy was enough to make her feel happy. Perhaps that's how the heart works. Before, Summer Hayes hoped to see me again once. Now thinking, could truly hold my hand for the long term. She was truly too greedy. Holding this secret wish, Summer Hayes walked to the monitoring room door. The walls here were all glass. So she clearly saw Hannah Shaw bend down, gently kiss my cheek. Hannah Shaw's eyes were red-rimmed. Kept choking up. "Thank you, Ethan. Thank you for waking up." I was still somewhat disoriented. Raised my hand to touch Hannah Shaw's face. My knuckles pierced with all kinds of life-sustaining tubes. Lips behind the oxygen mask moved slightly. I whispered, "Thank you, Hannah. If it weren't for you." "Thank you, Hannah. If it weren't for you. I probably would have died 3 years ago. I wouldn't have Shinshin. Such a wonderful child, wouldn't have a happy future." Hannah Shaw's tears fell on my cheek. I smiled softly. "Thank you for loving me." Hannah Shaw couldn't help but smile too. "Silly. That's my line." She leaned past the oxygen mask, giving her beloved a precious kiss. Summer Hayes stood outside the glass, her limbs cold as ice. She was so smart. How could she not know why? Only now was I expressing feelings with Hannah Shaw. I was such a considerate, thoughtful person. I knew clearly my surgery's success wasn't 100% certain. So I chose, after surgery, to open my heart to Hannah Shaw. No moment hurt more than now, compared to the heart-wrenching pain in her heart and stomach. The fractured ankle was already negligible. Summer Hayes walked away disheveled, not wanting to see that pair of lovers, embracing in quiet silhouette, leaned against the wall, helplessly crying. The matter of Shinshin's allergy leading to unconsciousness. Everyone unanimously kept hidden from me. My surgery had just ended. All everyone could do was not add the slightest worry for me. While Hannah Shaw was troubled about how to make Shinshin understand the concept of allergies. The child had already consciously thought of what to say when facing Daddy. "Daddy loves me so much. I'll just say I don't like eating peanuts. Then Daddy won't give them to me." Stephen Su nodded. "Our Shinshin is still the smartest." Stephen Su didn't know if her advice had worked until she saw Hannah Shaw, after feeding me unfinished liquid food, gently kiss my cheek. She was stunned, unable to say a word. You like Ethan Sinclair?" Hannah Shaw said helplessly. "You're only realizing now? We're already together now." She felt somewhat hesitant saying this. I hadn't refused her kiss, but also hadn't face to face with her. Said the word love. She anxiously awaited the other's verdict. Stephen Su was completely bewildered. Only now did she realize this stubborn cousin sister of hers from childhood was caring for someone so seriously. Besides liking, she couldn't think of another possibility. "Then Shinshin? Why does she call you auntie?" Hannah Shaw suddenly understood. Finally understood Stephen Su's confusion. Mentioning Shinshin's background, her expression darkened. "Do you remember my sister?" Stephen Su naturally remembered. Hannah Shaw's sister. That year gave up the position she'd worked so hard to pass exams for. Without hesitation ran to join the army as a military doctor. Even cutting off family ties didn't matter. The position she'd worked so hard to pass exams for. Without hesitation ran to join the army as a military doctor. Even cutting off family ties didn't matter. Stephen Su always thought she was very brave. So when hearing news of her passing, was also sad for a while. "My sister went to work as a military doctor because my brother-in-law was a serviceman. Shinshin is their child. Not long after, my brother-in-law had an accident. Shinshin was entrusted to me." Only now did Stephen Su learn the truth. Hearing such a heavy story, felt somewhat sad. Looking at the well-behaved Shinshin in the hospital room, lying beside me, Hannah Shaw smiled. "Now Ethan's raising Shinshin really well, right? Don't be sad for her. Now she has a very good daddy. Later she'll also have me as a good mommy. Though Shinshin's probably used to calling me auntie." Stephen Su still felt somewhat awkward. She, as Hannah Shaw's relative, not only didn't initially recognize the relationship between me and Hannah Shaw, but also thought of helping the rival steal her sister-in-law. This made her somewhat ashamed. Hannah Shaw shook her head helplessly. Stephen Su hesitated. I also wanted to say, do you know young CEO Hayes? She's always loved Ethan Sinclair." Hannah Shaw nodded. "I know. She was someone who'd lived through those 5 years. She'd witnessed countless times Summer Hayes's violent behavior and cold indifference toward me. Even less could she understand why Summer Hayes would love me now." Hannah Shaw said flatly, "She's a butcher." "Stephen, before you said the job wasn't at her place, right?" Stephen Su hesitated briefly before saying, "Yeah. But young CEO Hayes. She has a very long scar on her arm. This was something Hannah Shaw didn't know. She was slightly surprised, but only frowned, signaled Stephen Su to continue. The result was nothing special. It was that Stephen Su had inadvertently glimpsed it. When, wiping the desk in the CEO's office, she caught Summer Hayes lazily leaning back in her chair, unfastening the watch strap on her wrist. She discovered this secret. Maybe young CEO Hayes really knows she was wrong. Hannah Shaw simply summarized our 5 years. If sorry worked, what would we need police for? The day of discharge, the Seattle sky had completely cleared. My body had recovered very well. Hannah Shaw placed Shinshin in the car, then turned back to help me. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'm already well. Do you think I'm made of glass? Under the sunlight everything was especially beautiful. I smiled softly, eyes crinkling. My gaze moved past Shinshin's soft little head. Looking out the window, discovered a figure standing straight at the hospital entrance. I was startled. The car was about to start, but I gently patted Hannah Shaw's shoulder. I'll get out for a moment. Hannah Shaw had actually seen Summer Hayes early on. Just that she really didn't want to pay attention. Didn't expect I'd still notice. Just that she really didn't want to pay attention. Didn't expect I'd still notice. She turned off the engine reluctantly. I smiled, lips pressed together. Stood up and touched my lips to her cheek. I'll be right back. Stay in the car with Shinshin. Auntie, your face is so red. Amid Shinshin's exaggerated shouting, I got out of the car. I'd long had the ability to walk on my own. Only Hannah Shaw always worried about this and that. The wind blew my bangs. My complexion much better nourished. My cheeks fuller, faintly showing traces of that innocent, hazy look from back then. Summer Hayes, what's wrong with your leg? Summer Hayes froze. Didn't expect I'd still get out and walk toward her. She turned her head awkwardly, directed her gaze toward the ground, but couldn't bear to look at me. She answered the wrong question. You're leaving soon? When are you going? I replied flatly, not that soon. The doctor said to stay in Seattle another half month. After half a month, a follow-up exam. If there's no problem, then there's really no problem. Summer Hayes nodded. Her gaze wandered over my face, as if she could never tire of looking, using her sorrowful gaze to trace my features. I raised my hand and pulled her watch-wearing wrist, gently unfastened it, looking at that horrifying scar, like her ugly side, exposed before me. In that moment Summer Hayes suddenly felt somewhat afraid. She wanted to pull her hand back, but I held her wrist firmly, my gaze as if tangible, burning until her bones ached. I asked softly, why do this? Summer Hayes whispered, because I hate myself. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have suffered so much all these years. I smiled and released her hand. Summer Hayes, I don't hate you, I said seriously. Those 5 years, what I did wasn't entirely to seek your forgiveness. I grieved for Ryan. From the Hayes family's perspective, I truly deserved to die. What I should have done that day was die with Ryan instead of living alone. But do you know? That day on the operating table, the moment I nearly died, I saw Ryan. He stood beside me, pulled me across a very wide river, until the water reached my stomach, my chest. I never struggled. I trusted Ryan wouldn't hurt me. Even less would he resent me. Sure enough, when we reached the shore, he reproached me. Why come so early? I told you to live out my share too. That was the best dream I'd had in 8 years. In the dream was my childhood best friend. On the river between life and death, becoming my anchor and rudder, guiding me toward hope. I knew Ryan was such a gentle, kind boy. If that day, becoming my anchor and rudder, guiding me toward hope, I knew Ryan was such a gentle, kind boy. If that day, it had been me who died at those criminals' hands, I absolutely wouldn't blame Ryan. Just as Ryan absolutely didn't blame me. Tears fell endlessly. I wiped my tears. To Summer Hayes, who was also crying numbly. So now you know, right? Now I'm not living for myself. I'm living for Ryan, for Shinshin, and for Hannah. Summer Hayes, do you think Ryan wants to see you die? I've forgiven you. Please live. She nodded gently. Summer Hayes, goodbye. Hannah Shaw's fists clenched tight then released. She saw me walking back with red-rimmed eyes. Nearly got out to beat Summer Hayes up. I realized, She only sometimes looked mature. Actually was quite impulsive too. I said helplessly, "You've already hit her several times. She's still injured now. Be good." Hannah Shaw pouted. Unhappy. Why are you still biased toward her? Who's your girlfriend anyway? It's Hannah. Who else could it be? Shinshin raised her hand. It's me. I'm Daddy's girlfriend. She clearly didn't understand the meaning of girlfriend yet. Hannah Shaw held her and poked her twice. Said fiercely, "Isn't it me? For this whole life it's me. You wanting to be his girlfriend? Not possible." I smiled brightly. Shinshin is Daddy's little treasure. Girlfriend isn't an easy position. Let Auntie do it. Shinshin nodded with a smile. Hannah Shaw drove. While saying, Shinshin should start preschool too. After spring we'll find one for her. For this semester, I was somewhat helpless. Wait until we're back south. The warm south is where I belong. I'd grown up in the south. Until college when I met Summer Hayes. Only then chose to settle here. Given a choice, naturally wouldn't stay anymore. Half a year later, Stephen Su pleaded, "Please. You absolutely have to come. I don't have many friends. If you don't come, we won't even fill one table." I was leading Shinshin in watercolor painting. Hearing this, couldn't help laughing. How could that be? You don't have few friends. Hannah Shaw was utterly speechless. Don't mind her. Took the building block from Shinshin's mouth. Glared at her. Shinshin wasn't scared of her at all. Instead stuck out her tongue. "Ethan, do you want to go?" I nodded firmly. "Have to go. That's your cousin. Hannah Shaw and I bought a house in the city." Shinshin also smoothly entered preschool here. Though she started a year later than other children. She was never afraid or timid. Growing up full of vitality. Sometimes looking at her, I remembered. Growing up full of vitality. Sometimes looking at her, I remembered faces now slightly blurred in memory. Our family drove north, still some time before the wedding. So we traveled and played along the way. Back in college, I'd been so envious of friends who could travel everywhere. After all, an orphan like me could only barely sustain my own life. No matter how good my relationship with Ryan, I couldn't really accept him paying for everything to take me sightseeing. My body had recovered very well. Passing through a province with famous mountains. Hannah Shaw even took Shinshin and me to climb a mountain together. Though the process was incredibly arduous. Standing at the peak felt expansive. Like my rebirth over the past half year. After arriving in Seattle, Stephen Su hurriedly welcomed our whole family. There, the small villa they'd borrowed money to buy would host the event in 3 days. Seeing Stephen Su in a suit, I suddenly felt somewhat moved. Everything was prepared. The wedding proceeded. Music played melodiously under the pianist's performance. Shinshin wasn't afraid of the stage at all. Carried the flower basket walking behind Stephen Su. Her adorable appearance made everyone smile. Until that solemn ceremony ended. I discovered Hannah Shaw wasn't beside me. I searched around with my eyes. In the crowd stood an unexpected figure. Summer Hayes with that same cool demeanor. Her spirit much better than before. Our gazes met in midair. I raised my glass. Summer Hayes drank it down. As if after this glass of wine. The love and hatred from before. Joy, anger, affection, resentment all wiped clean. The bride's bouquet toss. I was urgently pulled up by Shinshin. The bride threw backward multiple times. The bouquet still clutched in her hands. She simply pulled up her full skirt. Turned and ran straight to me. The moment the bouquet was thrust into my hands. I was stunned. The guests' applause thundered. Automatically parting a small path. Standing there, in an evening gown, with tense steps, Hannah Shaw. The moment our eyes met, mine reddened. Hannah Shaw's hands trembled. She was so nervous her lips went pale. "Ethan, I have 1,000, 10,000 words but can't express my feelings right now." Hannah Shaw simply held an exquisite ring before me. The groom, the bride smiled, opening streamers and flower petals for us. Golden fragments flew everywhere. The person I loved choked up proposing to me. "Ethan, I love you. Will you marry me?" I raised my hands to embrace her. "I will." This was the happiness I'd expended so much effort to welcome. What followed was a very long, very beautiful life. The end.